I know, I said I'd wait, but due to some really complicated, stupid Thai bureaucracy, I had to sell my Mavic Pro, which I really did not want to do. But you can't be without a drone. So, I got me one of these babies. Cue the music. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Keith, and if you're new to this channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I make loads of videos around all things drone and photography. So let's get into today's video. As you saw from the intro, I'm talking about the Mavic 2. So why did I choose the Mavic 2 Zoom? I chose the Mavic 2 Zoom basically because of the zoom lens. I thought that the Pro, although it was a better quality, it brings that Hasselblad camera technology, it brings all that stuff to the table. The trouble is when you're making videos for YouTube, YouTube strips a lot of that out, and I thought from a creative perspective you can do a lot more with that zoom lens, and certainly when I'm making videos you can do a lot with that. When you're doing photos or you're into photography, then I would recommend the Pro hands down, because you've got that adjustable aperture, whereas the Zoom has a fixed f-stop of 2.8. You can vary that on the Pro, and I've been getting into photography a bit more with the drones, and I don't regret not having that, but I wish I had the best of both worlds. Let's show you the drone. This is the Mavic 2 Zoom. First things to notice is that it's bigger. It's considerably bigger, it's longer, and it's higher than the original. You don't know it until you put it against an original Mavic Pro, and then you actually do see quite a size difference. But with it being heavier, it also seems to be much more stable when it's flying. It certainly seems to be much more planted in the wind, and I do love that about this. The battery life is supposedly longer on this. I haven't noticed that at all. In fact, I would say sometimes it seems to be less than the original Mavic. Maybe that's because I'm flying it in high wind and I've been doing a lot of coastal shoots, and because of that, obviously there's wind and it's fighting to stay more stable, but I wouldn't say I've noticed an increase in battery life. The other thing to note, although DJI do now tell you this, is it has these omnidirectional sensors. So it's got sensors here, at the back, on top, and underneath. They do not operate all the time. In fact, the back and bottom sensors and the front sensors are operational all the time, but the side sensors and the top sensors only work in certain modes like active track. It's something to note. So if you get one of these, make sure if you're flying in normal mode or manual mode, remember the omnidirectional sensors are not in operation. There's a little icon in the top hand part of the app that will show you what sensors are working and when. Check out the manual if you don't know what I'm talking about. So the things I like about this drone, the first thing I noticed when the first time it took off was how quiet it is. It's seriously quiet, guys. I mean, it's a lot quiet. I would say it's a lot quieter than the Mavic Pro. Now, I had the original Mavic Pro with the low noise props on it, and that, I was impressed, was pretty quiet. Having come from a Spark and a Mavic Air, and the Mavic Air is just so noisy. I mean, I compare it to a seriously pissed off bee. It's so high pitched and whiny. This thing is it's just peaceful and quiet. The gimbal, the original Mavic Pro gimbal was flimsy, and it felt like you could just snap it like that. And in the wind sometimes you'd notice a little bit of shake in it because there was nothing to it. This thing feels so much more robust, so much stronger, and much better built. I love the gimbal on this. It just feels right. The overall video quality and photo quality on this is not bad. It's the same sensor as the original Mavic Pro, but the optics are slightly better, and obviously you've got that zoom length. One thing to note is that the aperture is fixed, so it's fixed at 2.8, so you will need ND filters with this. When you're zooming in, that aperture changes to 3.5. If you are shooting in 1080p, you can zoom into 96 millimeters, which is incredible, and you don't really lose that much quality. So it's really impressive, the zoom on this. One thing I love about the remote is you can now switch it to tripod mode. So if you need to do a bit more precision flying, or when you're landing in a tight space, switch it to the tripod mode, and it becomes a lot less nimble. It's far more slow and smooth is the best way to describe it if you're not used to flying drones. So yeah, that's quite a nice addition. Overall, I like the remote as well. The feature where you can remove the sticks and store them underneath the arms is great. That's from the Mavic Air, and they've carried that over to the Mavic 2, which I do like. Sometimes, I will be honest, I'll be lazy and won't take the sticks off, but most of the time when I'm traveling, take the sticks off, pack it away, great. Another thing with the power adapter, they now, although you can still plug in a USB cable, you can only plug in one. You used to be able to plug in two with the Mavic Pro power adapter, but they include a fold-away cable, so you can just charge your controller without having to plug in the additional USB cable, which is really nice. It's quite neat. And it's a much nicer, more slick-looking power brick than the original Mavic Pro one. I like that, but that's just me. I like fancy, slick tech. The charging hub is the exact same design as the Mavic Air one. It's obviously from Mavic 2 batteries, but it's a fold-away one, and it's just more compact than the original. The original was just this square block, and it was quite an awkward shape. This folds down, and you can place it into a bag much easier than you could with the original. So that's a nice thing. So the POV mode, which is basically the circling mode, where you can circle around an object, you can vary your height and basically your distance from the object, but the drone automatically will circle around, which is very useful to get that nice cinematic shot. The POV mode on the original Mavic Pro was a bit annoying because you'd have to fly right over the top of the object, point the camera down and record that waypoint, and then move out to your desired distance and then start the POV mode. Now it's a lot simpler. You can still do that to get more precise options, but it's a lot simpler now. You just draw a square around the object and the drone will work out the distance and calculate that and then start POV mode automatically. A lot easier. I love that. It's just so much easier, especially if you need to get that quick shot. Okay, so there's a few things on this drone I don't like. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is the folding mechanism on the original Mavic Pro was really slick, and it just worked nicely. The issue here that I've discovered is when you fold the arm back, it stops. Can you see that? It rubs against the side. It never did that on the original, so you have to be careful when you're folding the arms back in and make sure that you're slightly pulling on it, otherwise it will rub against the side of the thing. That seems to be a bit of a manufacturing fault there, DJI, and for a drone that is actually a lot more expensive than the original Mavic Pro, you would expect that not to do that. So that's a bit lame on their part, and it's something that really bothers me. But you know, it's one thing in what is otherwise a really good drone. The other thing is, with the exception of the Mavic Air and the Spark, because the Spark never came with one, DJI don't make the best gimbal covers. I mean, on the original Mavic Pro, it was a two-piece thing. It was a fiddly thing. And I found a third-party one on Amazon, which was an all-in-one bit that had two little sort of forks in it, and you just placed that on. It was far easier than the original two-piece gimbal cover that came with it. This thing is just as fiddly, which is really annoying because the gimbal cover on the Mavic Air is bliss and it's easy to put on. This thing is just, it's so bloody awkward. There are third-party ones emerging, so I'm going to order one from Amazon or the equivalent here in Thailand when they come out, and I'll make a video on that. But this thing is just as fiddly as the original and just as annoying. So come on, DJI, learn from your mistakes, make a decent gimbal cover. You did it on the Mavic Air. Why can't you do it for this one? This is twice as much as the Mavic Air. And I mean, I mentioned it earlier on in the video, but for God's sake, why didn't you just make the cameras interchangeable? I mean, seriously, on your Inspire 2 drone, you can take one camera off and put another camera on. Why didn't you do that with this? I would love to have both cameras, and because I'm really getting into aerial photography, and the camera on the Mavic 2 Pro, sorry, it's a mouthful, is just so much better than this for photography because you've got that variable aperture and loads of other things which I won't go into now. But basically, you can change these cameras yourself if you know anything about electronics and you've got a decent screwdriver set, and you can get hold of the camera, which you can't at the moment. You can change the camera quite easily, but why didn't you just make it like a slot-in camera and a slot-out camera? That just would have been so much better. I would have bought both cameras and had one drone body, but no, you had to just make it difficult. Cheers, DJI. Okay, apart from those things I've really mentioned, there's nothing else I don't like about this drone. I mean, it is just it builds upon what the Mavic Pro was, and apart from a few quality issues, it greatly improves the Mavic Pro. I loved the Mavic Pro, I really did. This greatly improves on it for the most part, and the LED landing lights it has is just seriously cool. If you're flying it at night and it comes down, they are surprisingly bright. And I've got an up and coming video where I use this as a photography light to photograph my wife on a beach, and I got some really cool pictures doing that. So I love these LEDs on that, and you can control them on the controller. You can set one of the custom buttons to it, so you can turn them on and off. So you can have it at 100 meters and everybody thinks they're seeing a UFO. It's quite cool, you should try it. Mavic 2 brings a few new modes to the party, and one of those is hyperlapse, and I love that. The creative possibilities that you get from doing hyperlapses is amazing. The hyperlapse mode still needs some work. It doesn't have all the features there yet. For instance, it's still missing the waypoint save mode. So if you watched the introduction video that DJI did when they brought out the Mavic 2, it showed you that picture of flying over Marina Bay in Singapore, and it went from day to night. And the idea was that you could do that via waypoints, save those waypoints, and then come back later. The most you can get out of this on one battery at the moment is about 25 seconds. So having the ability to do that was great, and when we saw that in the video, we went, great, fantastic. It hasn't emerged yet. It's still not there. The mode isn't in the current version of the firmware, which is kind of lame. But apart from that, hyperlapse mode is quite cool. It takes some learning. As I said, there's still some work needed. I think they could add a few things to for pros that know more about manual settings. You don't have full manual control over it yet. But this is a hyperlapse I just did. This is the first hyperlapse I did down at the beach the other day. Check this out. As you see, it's quite cool, and it has loads of possibilities. I haven't done a decent sunset one yet. That's the next one on my list, but I love hyperlapse mode. There's 4 sort of different sub modes in that. You can fly it manually, which you really don't want to do because of all the jerks. You can fly a circular mode, you can fly a core sort mode, or you can fly a waypoint mode. All of those have their own unique set of possibilities, and it's worth checking out. As I said, it's going to take some practice to get it, and you really don't want to do it on a windy day because you really do see that flutter. As I mentioned in my video where I said I was waiting for the Mavic 2, the one thing that really excited me was the dolly zoom effect. I did these 2 dolly zoom effects with the auto mode. This was one I filmed at the temple the other day. It's not perfectly positioned, as again, it's going to take some practice, but it's quite a cool effect. Check this out. And this is another one I did when we were on a recent holiday to Koh Chang. This was my wife on the beach. It's quite a cool effect, as you can see. I want to start trying to practice doing it in manual, then I can use the flat color profile and color it myself. The trouble is when you're using one of their quick shot modes, it auto colors everything for you, and I want to have complete control over the color. So I want to perfect the ability to do it manually. The one thing to note is you can't vary the speed of the zoom. It's one speed only, which is kind of lame because I want to be able to vary that because you can get better effects with it, but that's not something there at the moment. It may come in a future firmware update, but I think it's more of a hardware thing, so I'm not banking on it. Another new mode that comes is the asteroid and boomerang modes that were with the Mavic Air. So this is an asteroid I did the other day. It's quite cool. It's very gimmicky. It's probably only for social media. I'll probably never use it in anything else. I might use it on the odd occasion. I'm sure my wife will love it for her Facebook, but it's a cool mode, but I won't particularly use it. So there are a few issues I've discovered with this drone. Active track is one of them. On a recent holiday to Koh Chang, my wife and her sister took out a quad bike, and she wanted me to film her above for a video for her Facebook. And I just decided what a perfect opportunity to test out Active Track. Now, we did something similar last year, and I did that with the Mavic Pro, and for the most part, Active Track followed her. There's a few times where I had to rescue it because it was going to go into a tree, and there were a few other times where it lost her. But for the most part, it worked quite nicely. The Mavic 2 lost her an awful lot, a lot more than the original Mavic Pro did. And at one point, it just suddenly decided to veer right sideways, right across the field and into a clump of trees. And only thanks to those 360 directional sensors did it stop. But it literally was in a cluster of trees, and I had to turn the drone very softly and then get it out the trees, and that wasn't easy. And it scared the living crap out of me. But I wasn't impressed with it on that particular occasion. I mean, the following day we went out on a diving trip, and my wife and sister took out a canoe, and then it was quite impressive. I got it into circle mode, and it was coming around near a crop of trees, and it was getting very close, but it never hit them. So I was very impressed with the active track in that point. But in the quad video, it lost her a lot, as you can see from here. So yeah, as you can see, I've had varied results from Active Track. So it's, I think it needs some work, DJI. As I mentioned earlier, there is no mode yet in Hyperlapse to save your waypoints. So you can't do that day to night effect, which is something I was really looking forward to trying, and I can't do it yet. So what the hell, DJI? You showed us that in the video, and yet it's not on the drone. It's not great. Okay, in conclusion, I love the Mavic 2. It's a great improvement on the Mavic Pro, and there's a lot to like about it. Do I love it as much as the Mavic Pro? Not yet. And the reason I say this before you shoot me down in flames is it feels slightly unfinished. I think it will be finished, and it's predominantly a software issues, but those software issues for me are letting it down at the moment. More and more so in this day and age, tech companies seem to rush their products to market without fully testing them, without finishing them, and here is no exception. The lack of waypoints mode in Hyperlapse, which we were shown in the launch video, the fact that it's not there yet and it's been out for nearly 2.5 months is seriously poor. The lack of precision landing, even though that was on the Mavic Pro, it's not here. We are told that we're going to get most of this in firmware updates, but why weren't they there at release? Don't get me wrong, as I said, it is a better drone than the Mavic Pro. It greatly improves on the Mavic Pro, and the Hyperlapse mode and the creative possibilities you get there, the zoom and stuff, those are fantastic. But the fact that you can't change the cameras easily is really annoying. I love this drone. It's my only drone now. I had to sell my Spark and my Mavic Pro to get it. It's a lot more expensive than the Mavic Pro. As I said earlier on in the video, the fact the arms rub isn't great, especially from the fact that it's more expensive. But look, I'm not going to keep dumping on this drone because I do love it. I really do. And I'm glad that I have it. But DJI, you need to get those firmware updates sorted and get that so that it is what we were promised in the first place. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. And as always, happy flying.